everyone. My name is Eric Presnell from LIDE Australia. We are here today with our second episode of our web series. We are very excited to have him on board. He is the CEO of LIDE China. He's actually currently in Sao Paulo, Brazil at the moment. So he is quite the international man, and we're very happy to have him on board. So let's introduce José Ricardo dos Santos from the LIDE China CEO, and Braga Nascimento y Zilio Advogados. Did I get that right?
Yes, you got that right, but you can just call me Ricardo, please.
Ricardo, you got it, absolutely.
Thanks for here in LIDE Australia.
How's everything going for you right now?
Everything is doing fine. I mean, under control, but we are trying to find a way to win this challenge in relation to this COVID-19. I think that everyone, regardless being in Australia, in China, or in Brazil, we are trying to rethink our business, the way that we unite people. Because in the end, business is a matter of uniting people. So we are trying to modify the way that we do business here, not only in LIDE China, but also in BNZ, the Braga Nascimento and Zilio Law Firm, in relation to get closer to our clients and try to, for example, present some clients from one base to another, trying to put people together in a virtual mode like this Zoom platform or Skype or WhatsApp or WeChat. And we are doing this in our base, not only in Brazil, but also in China. Because in the end, business continues. Some countries recover, and some countries still are facing some huge challenges. So, for example, China in the first trimester got a huge impact due to the COVID-19. But now it's time of China opening its factories, working in these 3 shifts. And Brazil, we're still facing just this lockdown. Some states in Brazil, they are doing in a different way, not in an homogeneous way in relation to the federal government. For example, the state of São Paulo, which receives 40% of the total Chinese foreign direct investment, is closed. Only essential business are open. It's expected to open after May 11. So we are on this time as a business platform of LIDE China. We are trying to get more connected and get more involved, time consuming with our clients. And we believe that we can provide more consultancy and also trying to exchange more ideas between the entrepreneurs in our client base.
Exactly. And you say it's very subjective for each country. And I think that's very accurate because, you know, a lot of these countries, some aren't really feeling the effects. We know that we're very lucky here in Australia to not have many cases or many deaths at the moment. When you got others like the United States or China, they're really having to adapt to a completely new society and as you said, new technology. With that, I'd like to bring in the president of LIDE Australia. We have Carlos Ferry back for it. Carlos, thank you for being here with us today. I know that you guys are close friends, you and Ricardo. How you doing today, man?
Oh, good, man. Thank you very much, Eric, for having me again here in the web series. Thanks, Ricardo, for being with us here, talking a little bit about all the relations about what China is being up to at the moment. We're going to be talking a little bit about how we can all help each other. In fact, to be able to actually move forward with everything that's happening at the moment. And thanks so much, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to move over to Ricardo. Ricardo, tell us a little bit about, I know that you and Carlos know each other, and obviously Sao Paulo, you guys have been there together. How did you get started working in the Chinese sector? How did you get brought up in that?
Well, I started studying Chinese because I was really interested in the Chinese culture. My study began in 2005. I graduated from a law university here in Sao Paulo in 2003. And in 2005, I started studying Chinese. The problem about being a lawyer in Brazil and a lawyer any elsewhere is that you cannot practice law abroad. Only if you do a test in the bar association and get approved. In other countries, for example, you have to do some subjects in other university to complement your studies. So I started studying Chinese in 2005. It was 3 times a week, 2 hours per class. And I really didn't expect it, but the law firm that I was working for had a representative office in Beijing. So it's funny to say that in 2007, the lawyer that was the chief representative of this Brazilian law firm in Beijing, he was willing to get back to Brazil. So the law firm knew that I was studying by myself. I wasn't even in the international law department at all. I was practicing law in the labor law department, and they asked me, Ricardo, why you don't go to China to have your experience? We know that you are very interested in Chinese culture, and we think that we can do a test. Like, you have this experience of 6 months. If we like the way that you are working, and if you like this different way of living and working in China, we can extend it. So for this 6 months, it turned to be 5 years. So I spent my 5 years in China from 2007 until 2012. I came back with my wife to Brazil, and I still go to China frequently. Generally speaking, 3 to 5 times per year, and the total length would be between 2 to 3 months every year. So I still, I am not in a daily touch, but I'm visiting frequently China, and that's the reason why we are rendering this assistance for our business partners and our clients in LIDE China. Is a platform where we can unite the Brazilian with the Chinese entrepreneurs, always with the support from the Brazilian and the Chinese government. Because when we talk about China, Eric, it's really important to understand the guanxi. Guanxi is the relationship, the interrelationship. We are here today, we are not talking about LIDE Australia or LIDE China. We are talking about the relationship that I have with Carlos, who invited me to join you, Eric, in this webinars. So again, talking about doing business in China, it's about being interconnected. It's about trust. Every business that we talk in the world is about trust. But China, firstly, trust. And then we talk about business. So firstly, I want to know who is Carlos. I want to know who is Eric. And then I can think about doing business with them. So that's how it works in China. And somehow it also represents a time-consuming, if you compare the way that the Brazilians do business, for example, with the US. I would put Brazil in the middle, US here in the West, China in the East, and Brazil in the middle. Like, we are also business-oriented, but we like to develop our interrelationship. But China is more firstly relationship and then business, and US more business straightforward.
Very much. And I know growing up in the States, how that business is straightforward. So to hear about, a different culture and a different way of approaching business as to, mingle and to actually get to know the person beforehand. To be honest, I think that's just how business should be, like it should be kind of, you're not only investing in the business itself, you're investing in those people and who they are, who they represent, all of that. Carlos, can you actually jump in on this and give us your take? Because I think what Ricardo mentioned is the bridge that Brazil is between the US and China and that whole diplomatic. You guys have adapted to working in those kind of business frames. Did you find the same in Australia? How different or how similar was that for you?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting point where Ricardo put that relationship first, it's very important in China rather than in the US. But in Brazil, as a major country, a major player in the world, it's pretty clear that the relationship it's there, right? In the same way that we have companies that are straightforward and they really want to do business, and that is it. So I guess Australia, we are a little bit everyone together, right? So Australia, it's a very young country. We are a very small country. We know even more than 23 million people at the moment. And what I noticed was in Australia that they do push you towards an entrepreneurship sort of type of relationship, right? So you might be working in a massive corporation, but they always pushing you to go beyond that. Not just sort of sit down and it's like, yeah, no problem, So the government does help. So the community, I guess, they do the same. But one thing that we notice is Australia has a massive impact from the Asia region, right? Of course, China being the biggest country in Asia, we do have a lot of influence on us. So the three main industries that we have an influence from China are education, international education. So international education, it's a massive industry for Australia. At the moment, in fact, is the third largest one. We're just going, behind pretty much mining and tourism.
Oh, wow.
Because, yeah, exactly, right? And the second one is tourism, exactly. And tourism is actually where the Chinese, they use Australia as, I guess I could say the Hawaii from, the Asian Pacific region. We're warm, we're nice, we do have a lot of immigrants here as well. And the third and most important as well is our real estate. So the Chinese industry, the Chinese groups, they really looking forward to help Australia to grow, to really help Australia to succeed. And of course, I mean, we are 200,000 kilometers smaller than Brazil area. But Brazil has got 210 million people and we have 23 million. So I guess we welcome the Chinese, help in that sense, where they push, the boundaries. It is true that sometimes the culture, it's very important. So the relationship, the business relationship, it's important to learn. So I guess Ricardo can even tell us that, that information. I know it's true, but I'm curious about why would the Chinese, when they introducing themselves with their cards, they actually give the business cards with the two hands and not just with one. Tell us a little bit about that. That's something that we always have been curious about. Why is that? Why is that?
In the end, everything is about culture, right, Carlos?
Exactly, right.
In China, it's funny because I did, for example, an MBA in Peking University, and I learned a lot about not only business culture but also about the Chinese culture and history. And giving the cards with the two hands, it's not only a matter of respect, but also it's a way that this visiting card, this name card, it's my passport. In which way? For example, in the first class, where people, the students had to present themselves in the MBA, basically people said a little bit about yourself and then mostly about the company that they were working for. So for example, I will present myself. My name is José Ricardo. I'm the CEO of LIDE China. LIDE China is a business platform which unites the Brazilian and the Chinese entrepreneur. So they don't speak about themselves too much. It's funny because they think that this name card, this visiting card, which was actually now, especially for the teenagers, changed into the WeChat, I would say the Asian WhatsApp, but actually it's a super app in China where they can present themselves only using the QR code reader. in one mobile to another. But it's a matter of respect. China has a lot of business protocols, and this is something that I really try to understand and learn more and more, because it's really crucial for the Chinese business. Not only the way that you give your card to the person, the way or how you sit on a business table, the way that you invite people after having these meetings and have dinner or have lunch together. Drink also is also a matter of respect. For example, I'm just gonna bring, unfortunately, it's just water here, but when you do the ganbei, what is ganbei? Gan is to get dry, and bei, it's a beidzi, it's glass. So it means glass dry. It means bottles up. So
Yeah.
when you say ganbei and you would say cheers, you drink and you put your glass always below the glass of the person that you're drinking. Why? To show respect, to show that the person is much more important than you. So that's even the reason why that funny to say that the Westerns, they got surprised when people are fighting to put the glass down in the bottle, you know, one after another. And I advise people to hold the hand of the person, you know, the arm of the person, in order to put your glass down. But it's a matter of protocol. It's a matter of respecting the protocols, respecting the culture, the society, and then starting to talk about business. So these are only small things, but in the end, it makes the whole difference. It's the same as when you invite people to have lunch or have dinner. It doesn't have the sort of going Dutch practice. So when you invite people, you offer as much as you can. Generally speaking, you have in a Chinese restaurant that sort of round table that we call the rosemary table. And we order chicken, we order shrimp, we order fish. Why? Because we don't want to make you feel upset or uncomfortable in case that you don't eat anything. So you order vegetable, rice, and etc. And the person who is being served can eat whatever he wants or whatever she wants. And then in the end, just please make sure that after you order the dessert, the coffee, the tea, please make sure that you leave the table, or somebody which represents you leave the table and go to pay outside the table. Why? Because they don't expect that you're gonna pay.
Wow.
They don't expect that the person that was invited is going to pay. No, they already know that you're gonna pay if you invite. So you have to ask for a better position table. Usually, for example, the Chinese, they do not appreciate to sit in the middle of the restaurant. Generally speaking, they sit in the corners of the restaurant. I usually advise people to think about the Al Capone, the Italian mafia, in a way that the Chinese is never willing to sit giving the back to the main entrance. When you sit down, you offer the best part of the table in a way, the best location to make him know whatever is going on around the restaurant. So these are just small, simple tips. But again, if you respect the details, you get easily more involved with the Chinese.
You build your trust with the Chinese culture, right? And I guess on that topic as well. So as we having pretty much people watching us from China, Australia, Europe, or even America. Tell us a little bit more about these protocols. If there is a Brazilian company or an Australian company that they're trying to do business with the Chinese, or vice versa, the Chinese is trying to maybe buy part of a business or be in business with someone in a different country. So in your opinion, what would be the first steps? what would you recommend who's watching us here? And thank you very much for everyone who's watching the web series. So we always preparing, you know, and inviting someone very interesting to bring that information together for us. You might not know someone who can, you know, tell you that. So every week we try to bring someone different to talk about different topics here. So yeah, tell us a little bit about that. What would be the first steps?
Well, it's a very interesting question, Carlos, because when you think about doing business with the Chinese, and we know that Australia has a bilateral trade really important, not only mining, but tourism, education, and also agribusiness, right? And also the meat from Australia is very unique. You have to think about what would you be glad to receive, or how you would like to be served when you are in a different country, in a place that you've never been. So, for example, also I'm telling you some suggestions, but you have to understand how deep and how important this business would be for you. But if it's a really important business, the first step, for example, as you live in Sydney, for example, would be to pick the guys up in the airport. This would be not send somebody to pick them up to bring your guests, but you, Carlos, together, for example, with Eric, should go together as the leaders from LIDE Australia and present yourselves with the guests. So again, the Chinese, we say that the Chinese, they put the red carpet for you. From the time that you arrive in the country to the time you leave the country. So the first step would be more involved. Forget about LIDE Australia. Think about yourself, about you and Eric. So pick the guys, drop them in the hotel, make sure that the hotel the hotel room is how they expected. Leave your contact information with them and give some suggestions, some planning suggestions, because you're not going to only talk about business. They will visit for sure your office in Sydney, but also it would be good to take them out, not only for having lunch or dinner, but also to go to a nice spot to visit. So you have amazing harbor. You have the opera house. You have so many beautiful sightseeing that you should leave a space for them also to enjoy a little bit. And in the end, it's always about relationship, Carlos. They need to have this confidence on you. You have to build trust. So this would be my first tip: build trust. Don't forget, after they have these meetings and these conversations, usually try to buy them some gifts. And it does not necessarily need to be an expensive thing, but it may be something that reminds your country for them. So you can buy any souvenir from Australia and present to them. Always give with the two hands, as you already mentioned with the name card. Give the present with the two hands. These are nice things. These are nice gestures that humankind, not only the Chinese, but humankind appreciates. It's really nice, Carlos, for me if I go to Australia and I will be received not by the driver. I don't have anything against the driver, but having you and having Eric presenting yourselves here and say, Ricardo, welcome to Australia. It's more psychologically thinking. I really feel more comfortable. I feel safe. I feel that I'm being treated well.
Yeah, there's something really special about that honesty and that personal drive for it. Now, I actually do have a question in regards to going back to the meal, so to speak. You said that it would be nice to position yourself kind of at the table so that you can pay as a guest. Would they get the Chinese? Would they get even more offended if you were to take away the check from them by any chance?
No, for example, if you receive your guests in Australia, the Chinese guests, you should pay the whole meal.
Right.
And exactly. Really, they don't get offended at all. Actually, it would be risky, and it would be for For the Chinese that are not so internationally experienced, would be funny if they would have to share or even pay the bill. So it would be a kind gesture for you to make sure that you present them to the people involved in the business, but also try to make their visit as more enjoyable as possible. In a sense of going to nice restaurants, it does not necessarily need to be fancy.
Right.
And you have to be aware that what you like and what you appreciate does not necessarily mean that they like or appreciate. For example, you don't need to bring them to a 5-star Michelin French restaurant in Australia. Mostly the Chinese even don't appreciate cheese. So why you don't go to a crazy packaged but with a juicy meat in Sydney, with a noise, you know, with the noise of Australia, with the heart of Australia, you know, showing that you want to present them your culture. So it does not necessarily need to be fancy things. It has to be roots. It has to show your culture. It has to show how you want to present your country to them, so that when they go back, they will think not only about Eric, but they will think about their nice experience in which they were indulged with your nice meat, with your nice wine, with your great beer. So that's what is it all about. It's about of building trust, and it's about having a good experience. When I talk about the Chinese, they really appreciate food. So that's the reason why I'm talking a lot about foods and drinks. Because, for example, in a business environment in Brazil, when you have a business dinner, you just have maybe one glass of wine, and if if you are the guest and if you are being offered, but if you drink one glass, 2 glasses, no more than this. With the Chinese, usually you say ganbei, you say bottles up all the time. You really get drunk, because this social appearance for the Chinese does not matter. For the Chinese, it's even funny that after having a long night in Australia, for example, in the Corso in Manly Beach, in which I had the pleasure to be in 2002 and 2003, in the end of 2002, beginning of 2003, they want to get drunk with you, because when you get drunk, they say that the social masks, your social mask drops. So you really don't show, oh, I'm Carlos, I represent LIDE Australia. No, you're just Carlos. You're just Carlos. Yeah. It's different. It's a different approach.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow, Eric. See, man, we thought that we knew everything about China's relationship, and here we go. Ricardo is actually teaching us all the details for us to, you know.
I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes as we speak.
That's exactly right.
Now, I wanted to addition, if you're all right with this, Carlos, because obviously with everything going on, I think it's important that trust and kind of everything that's been happening is now a totally different story. Now we have Zoom chats. Now we can only chat with each other via the phone. We can't even see each other in person in half of these countries. So when we talk about the business relations, you know, or even personal with your constituents back in China, and even for you, Carlos, here in Australia and abroad, what's changed for you? How have the Chinese specifically taken this to a whole new level when it's very, very new, technologically driven?
One thing that I always notice when I built the company, for example, one thing that I noticed was, how can I actually offer the best service I can offer, right? So at that point in time, the beginning of my company, for example, it was a very hands-on. So we were managing international warehouses for the larger corporations in Australia. So that was pretty much the beginning of my company. So I could never even imagine having a Zoom conversation and having, you know, employees on a Zoom going to do the work, because it just wouldn't work, right? So as time went by, what we realized as well is that companies they all somehow looking for how they can become more digital, how they can actually go into this new era where, you know, really the technology, it's more like an investment than a cost, right? So, and what I notice is that companies, they still looking for a way. Even though, of course, we can, you know, we don't see each other that often, we talk to people more often now, as I can realize. And before, it was different way. So I would see Ricardo, if I, for example, go to Brazil, and even if I was in Brazil, I may actually not being able to see him. And in the other way, I wouldn't even talk to him or even call him, right? So now, because, as you said, Eric, we cannot actually really see each other, it kind of brought into me, and a lot of other people I've been talking to, it brought into us that kind of sense of, hey, the relationship, it's not about how, it's about why, right? So if you're going to do via Zoom or WeChat, or, you know, if you're going to see the person, have dinner, it doesn't really matter the way, but it does matter that, you know, maybe once every now and then, I'll call Ricardo and say, hey, mate, how you doing? You know, you doing okay? Do you need anything? Do you know, how you being up to, or whatever might be the question, but like, it's that relationship. And what I learned from the Chinese relationships I have, and my company has offices all across Asia, and we try to serve the companies and the, you know, within each country with its own way. But what I learned is this: you don't need to call them every single day for them to trust you. It's the other way around. You can call them once a month and say, hey, I'm here. Do you need anything? No, I'm okay. No problem at all. So that for me has changed, because that's how I actually was doing business already with Asia. And now it's pretty clear that the entire world needs to be that way. It's just not, it's kind of like a, it's not a different way. Again, it's why. That why, actually, it's more sort of in the surface now, showing that it's important to keep a great relationship with customers, with colleagues, with, you know, even companies that you actually want to become, you know, sort of have a business relationship. So it's not about, hey, you know, you call an investor and say, hey, I need some money. Yeah, that's my pitch, and that's it. It doesn't work that way. And that's one of the reasons that you talk to millions of people, and you just feel like, oh, they're not going to invest in my company. So it's a funny thing, isn't it, Ricardo? I mean, Brazil, I know it's a very social country. You know, it's where every single day, if we allowed to, we would actually have a end of the meeting in a pub, or, you know, in a restaurant, having, you know, something to eat and to drink and stuff. But one thing that it's interesting for me, Eric, and I guess Ricardo could help us with that. So, right, I established the relationship, right? So the relationship is there, the trust is there. So what's next? Should I just, you know, shoot straight and say, hey, I'm looking for investment? Or, hey, I'm actually want to sell you this. What would be next? Would that be, you know, just do that, or going for maybe looking for someone like Ricardo to advise, you know, in a legal way, how to do business in a different country? What would you say about that?
Well, I really appreciate your comments. I think that it really makes the whole sense. The relationship during this COVID-19 outbreak, I think it's more intense and it's more transparent, I guess. It's not only talking about business, but talking about yourself. In a way of having this scenario in a Chinese environment, I would say that the Chinese, they really appreciate and they make their most efforts to make the network together with their friends. So in Brazil, for example, sometimes you differentiate, oh no, Carlos is my close friend, I will not do business with him, because if the business goes wrong, the relationship goes wrong. No, in China, we are talking about 1.4 billion people, Eric. So we need to establish really well our network, because I want my family and my close friends to prosper and to succeed. So I want everyone to be successful. So I'm doing here, I'm establishing the network with Carlos, which presented to me Eric, and now Carlos wants me to get more involved with the Australians, for example. So he invited me to join you in this web series. That's one kind of relationship. It's much more. It's not only the interpersonal relationship, but it's the first step for us to do business together. So I will try to introduce more people from my side to you. More people from my side means more people that I trust. Because if I present the people that I trust here with you that I already trust, business can be more successful. We can avoid much more headache having only these trustworthy people together. So that's how is the Chinese mentality, to get more involved, but always thinking about your own network, because they have 1,000 or 1 million Ricardos with the same resume, 1,000 companies as LIDE China. Why LIDE China would be the best or the most suitable business platform to unite people between China and Brazil? Because I trust these people that are in the management of LIDE China. So it's not the company itself, but it's the relationship. It's sometimes it sounds too much. Oh, relationship, drinking, having meals. But again, these social protocols are really paramount when we talk about doing business with the Chinese. And we have to learn to respect. And I guess that the Australian people, they know how to welcome people. They are very warm people. So I think that you would not have too much difficulties to make these visitors, these Chinese entrepreneurs, to have a unique and unforgettable experience in Australia. You already have this way of putting people together and having fun, and not only in the business side, but also in your personal life. So I think that this is a way that you should pay attention and have some efforts on that. Having this way of building the relationship in a way that during this COVID outbreak, it can be, as Carlos already well mentioned, you don't need to call them every day, but you have to keep in touch.
Exactly. I think that personal touch.
Eric, that I received several, not only calls, but messages in the WeChat asking not only myself and my family, but LIDE China staff to receive medical equipment. And I'm not talking about business. I'm talking about sending by mail.
Wow.
I just received an information from one of our partners, which will donate 4,000 masks to our platform to donate to some hospitals in need here in São Paulo. Again, it's relationship.
That's it.
Wow. And this is how we make it. Relationship. Maybe I will use this guanxi, this relationship with Carlos today, but maybe tomorrow, Carlos will use this relationship with me the next day. So right. It's a way of credit and debit.
Yeah. And I think on that personal note, that subjective response that you have, Carlos, you were on about how, you know, what's the way to approach this relationship and what's that? And I think it is just, for a lot of people, it's just that natural thing, because you being Carlos, you're a talkative guy, man. You'll go out there, you'll have a beer, you'll start opening up, and then you'll be like, oh yeah, I'm looking for investors. Boom. All of a sudden in a natural habitat, you have eyes and ears from someone that you trust, you know, that you've already opened up to. And I think that's cool that it comes naturally that way, that it kind of just, these subjective relationships, these personal touches is kind of the way business should move in that sense. And I think I kind of want to get to that a little bit more. Is, do you think that personal touch has been taken away because of COVID. Obviously, Carlos, you spoke about how now we're speaking more, and I think that's important. I've reached out to friends that I haven't talked to in 10 years, and just to check in, see how they are, you know, and why we haven't done that in a normal day is kind of beyond me. But do you guys feel that now this screen, this thing that's in front of us right now, there's psychological studies that say that it actually does separate people. Do you feel that that's the same thing for international relations?
Well, honestly, judging by my experience with the Chinese, it's really important to have a face-to-face conversations, and this is a way to keep and maintain the relationship. But for new colleagues, new potential business, to my eyes, it really prevents us to go further. We can, for sure, develop new business with new people that are presented by other close, not only close friends, but also trustworthy people from your circle, your social circle. But to my eyes, it's not in the same path. It's not in the same pace. I think that the relationship, the interpersonal relationship, a face-to-face in the same table without this screen is much better in a way of doing business. I think that it's still, I don't think that technology will substitute the interpersonal relationship, an eye-to-eye, a face-to-face, an ear-to-ear. I strongly believe that having this interpersonal relationship in front of each other is still really important. I'm not only talking about China, but I'm talking about human beings. Honestly, I really miss having this direct contact with people. And I guess that you, Eric, as well, and you, Carlos, as well, in Australia. It's something really nice when we have technology to develop new trends. In China, for example, the technology helped a lot the Chinese people to fight against the COVID-19. For example, drones cleaning streets, and they have much more efficiency. They have 50 times more efficiency than the human labor force. You can see the ultraviolet equipments cleaning public transportation, cleaning public buses. The human labor force takes around 40 minutes, and with this ultraviolet light, it takes 5 minutes only. I'm talking about artificial intelligence from Alibaba, which could detect with 96% of chance detect if the person have or not the COVID-19. So wow. Technology, big data, artificial intelligence, the 5G technology is really on in all segments, even in education. You can see in China, the education segment, how the professors, they are recording videos to teach the students. I'm talking about the technology that is on the streets to help people to detect if the person has or does not have the COVID-19. I'm talking about the big data, the geolocalization in the mobile phone to see if you're moving from your house to the market, for example. So again, with this COVID-19, several technologies will be developed and implemented, but it will not replace the one-on-one personal meetings. This is my opinion.
Carlos, so your mission then as a Polytech, you got to come up with that personal face-to-face thing.
It's a very interesting question, and complementing what Ricardo said, I think people, they make the mistake thinking technologies is the ending and the solution for it. And in the other way, technology is the way actually to take us to our goal. So I have offices, as I said before, in different countries from where I am, and not necessarily I do travel every single month to those countries to visit my team or even visit the clients that we have there. But then again, if the technology helps us to keep in touch and really having a conversation, and we don't need to go too far. So if we think about, for example, if you're having a discussion with your wife or with your partner, would you do via text message? Would you call? Or would you actually go face to face? Right?
She would say that I do something completely different, but I do face to face.
Right? You go face to face. But if she's in the supermarket and then she's calling you and said, hey, do you want me to buy more of these or less that or these and these? So you don't need to actually say, no, hang on, let's meet outside the supermarket for us to have a conversation of what you're going to actually buy for. Like, it's just the application of the technology that people get confused, in my opinion. So, and then for that reason, the users or the community, because they misunderstood why that technology is being used for, then people, they backlash that. They like, oh, if I'm using an app to control, who's infected or not for COVID-19, oh no, the government is actually trying to control me and trying to see where I'm going and that kind of thing. And look, again, I'm not going in favor or against any governments here. I'm completely apolitical here. But what I'm trying to say is that because that technology could have been used for something else or was used for something else, people, they get their fear that technology is actually an evil rather than actually a way to get them more efficient or quicker to a goal. So the 5G for me, it's a perfect example, right? So there is a lot of talking about the 5G around the world. And in my opinion, hey, God, if I can have internet cheaper, more available, and actually I can use at any point to do anything I want, doesn't matter if that's for education, that's in mining, or that's for, in a restaurant, it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't I go for it? But because people have that, I guess, in the back of their minds, but with the 5G, all the data will going through that tower, and then people will be reading and listening and watching and doing that and this, and oh, no, I'm not comfortable with that. So then, of course, the governments, they move towards what the community wants. So then the government said, oh, no, hang on. Let's just stop that increase of technology here because people are not comfortable about. And that's when we actually miss out, in my opinion. So we as Ricardo said, rather than actually having, someone maybe exposed to actually do the cleaning, and even though it would take 40 minutes and putting a robot to do that in 5 minutes, oh, no, but I'm actually taking jobs away. So I guess that's a topic for a different, web series, a different episode here, because, there is a lot that we can talk about, the pros and cons of, the technology here.
Especially, when you talk about medical, especially, like, it's all changing, and that's the present that we currently live in. It's a big question mark. But even moving forward, and that's kind of what I want to get for these last few minutes that we have for you, is chatting about what's next. I mean, do you have specifically for you, Jose? Do you have plans to go back to China when all of this is underway? What's the next plan of attack for LIDE China and getting that back up?
Well, I think that China showed to the world several technologies that can be shared to the humankind in a sense of developing our country and preventing ourselves from the COVID-19. To my eyes, as soon as Brazil gets with its airports open and China gets also its country open to the foreigners, I would definitely go, and also I would definitely receive Chinese delegations, because China for Brazil is the biggest. China is the biggest partner of Brazil since 2009. In 2018 and 2019, the trade between Brazil and China was over $100 billion US.
Wow.
If you compare with the second biggest trader from Brazil, that's US. US in 2018 was of 58 billion, and US in 2019 was of 59 billion trade. So it means almost 40 billion between the biggest trading partner, that is China, to the second one, that is US. And I'm not criticizing any country, and it's not the point here. The point is that the relationship with China is getting more closer with Brazil. And for that, the business for sure will grow, not only in terms of technology, but also in terms of agribusiness. We export a lot of agribusiness from Brazil to China. And I think that this will only will get more time, will be more developed, because we have iron ore, petrol, soybeans, cellulose, and also meat from chicken, cattle, pork, and etc. That China needs. So we are talking about food security, and we are also talking about food safety. The thing is that as soon as this COVID-19 is not, I will not say finished, but more medicine and vaccines will be discovered, I strongly believe that I will reunite physically, not only emotionally, with China, because it's a 5,000 years country. And we are talking about Brazil, which has 500 years. So there's a lot to learn in terms of culture, in terms of history, in terms of business. And this is, I strongly believe that there will be no way out, because China has huge policies, not only in relation to the One Belt, One Road, and now changed the name to the Belt and Road Initiative, but also has the Made in China 2025, which means that until 2025, China will have high-tech and high-end products produced. 70% of the total high-end products will be produced internally in their domestic market. But again, I think that it's a country with the development of 5G will provide a lot of opportunities for the Brazilian people. The only thing that we are not really sure is how the countries will get united again, because after COVID-19, we are definitely, we can say that it's a new era. It's completely different after the Second War, in a sense of multilateralism. So I think that the countries will try to get united in a different way. And one of the things that will be affected for sure will be the chain factory, the value chain, right? Because some of the equipments that need to be produced, we cannot depend only in one country. So it's gonna be diversified. And Australia, as well as Brazil, will definitely think how they can avoid to be so affected in a sense of the value chain, in a sense of producing spare parts, not to be dependent only in one country. Because with this sort of disease, as well as the climate change, does not have barriers, does not have frontiers. So there will be a new model, a new business model that will be developed by each country.
Exactly, and I think that's what Carlos said in the last episode. There was the new normal, and I think that's very, very accurate. It will be a brand new normal, and we've had to adapt, and I think we'll continue to. Carlos, anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, no, I just want to say that, Ricardo, thank you so much, man. I think it was a great conversation, and as we keep saying, when you know the information from the source, it's so much easier than, oh, I heard about, right? So I think you're 100% right. The relationship, the way the relationship will work, it's more important than ever. I think the countries will need to find a different way now to not be too dependent from a country, but those countries actually, they are the ones, I guess, sourcing that dependency, like Brazil and Australia for the agri sector. I think we also responsible to help the countries to think outside the box, I used to say. So now we need to help the countries to think outside something, because the box was the old normal, right? So the new normal, we don't even know if that's a box. We definitely need to do that. And I mean, like myself and yourself and Eric and, you know, so many other entrepreneurs out there, we are the ones not responsible, but definitely we are the ones who will be able to help the governments to sort of move forward and move faster, actually, in a way that we can have a better life for our kids and a better life for, you know, people coming after us. So thanks so much once again for being here with us. That was great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Carlos, and thank you, Eric. It was a really nice experience to get in touch with LIDE Australia and with the Australian entrepreneurs. I really hope that this information was somehow useful for the people who are watching us now. And I'm totally free and open to develop this discussion with other topics in relation to how we can benefit or how we can improve our business relationship with China. It's going to be a pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. We really appreciate that, man. That is it for us here on episode 2 of the web series for LIDE Australia. Thank you very much for tuning in. For more updates and to hear about our daily updates here in Australia, please follow us on our website or on Instagram. For everybody here, we just hope you stay safe, stay well. Stay tuned next week as we dive into Europe and we actually get to see behind the scenes of what is happening in one of the most prominent areas of the COVID-19. Thank you very much. I'm Eric Presnell from LIDE Australia.